It's a beautiful day outside, a beautiful spring day. The sun is warm, the birds are chirping. There is a rooster in the distance, apparently, which is weird because it's the middle of the afternoon, but I believe that's merely a stereotype. And here I am, in my room, about to continue reading a book that I hate. An important book, a genre-defining book, a problematic book that carries an entire legacy of problematic issues. You see, having read the prefix, yes, that's the word, having read the prefix of this book, I learned that Orwell died just 1 year after this book was published in 1949. Having that piece of information definitely contextualize why his avatar, his character, basically his self-insert character, Winston Smith, is the way he is, and why he is indulging into the, let's face it, very established male fantasy of having a whole lot of love with a much younger woman. And I don't have a problem with that per se, but I do have a problem with certain unsavory passages that no amount of "it's a product of its time" can justify their existence, including the idea that a guy can just go up to a girl that he likes and say, "You know, I fantasized about killing you and raping you," not necessarily in that order, and said girl, which is not a real character, just laughs it off and he's very much okay with that. You see, my biggest issue with 1984 is that its success pretty much ensured that female characters would be written in a very specific way for decades to come in modern science fiction. And yes, even in good entries of the genre, such as the recent follow-up to Blade Runner 2049, which is a film that I absolutely adore, by the way, even that film has a female character serving as nothing but the support, emotional or otherwise support, that exists only and solely for the benefit of the protagonist. And it's more subtle and more accidental in modern science fiction than it is overtly obvious in older science fiction stories, such as 1984. I cannot get over how much the level, the overall quality of the writing gets objectively worse as Part 2 began. It goes from depicting this oppressive, dreary, individualist killing dystopian world, manifesting all the fears for totalitarianism that were very much prevalent and on point for the time this book was being written. And then we go from there to a high school level romance, written by the worst fanfiction writer in existence. And maybe that's just the problem with Orwell. He can write an excellent world and world building, but he cannot write romance to save his life. What I find a little more lighthearted about this book is that basically the idea of using sex as an instrument for political protest In 1949, wow, that is anticipating the hippie movement by a good 10 to 15 years, doesn't it? I've been stalling for enough time. Let's get back to the reading of this unpleasant book. So, where were we? In a distant and second-hand set of dimensions, in an astral plane that was never meant to fly, the curling star mists waver and part. See, great Atuin the turtle comes, swimming slowly through the interstellar gulf, hydrogen frost on his ponderous limbs, his huge and ancient shell pocked with meteor craters. Through sea-sized eyes that are crusted with rheum and asteroid dust, he stares fixedly at the destination. Hold on a minute, this isn't 1984. This is Terry Pratchett's The Color of Magic. A Discworld novel. You know, good literature. Never mind. My bad. It's not like I could totally see the cover of the book with my own two eyes. Isn't that a funny gag? You know, me pretending to read the wrong book, which turns out to be a much better choice of reading than the actual book I'm supposed to read. Isn't that hilarious? Oh boy, we're having so much fun already. We can come here once again, said Julia. It's generally safe, but not for another month or two, of course. As soon as she woke up, her demeanor had changed. She became alert and businesslike, put her clothes on, knotted the scarlet sash about her waist, and began arranging the details of the journey home. It seemed natural to leave this to her. She obviously had a practical cunning which Winston lacked, and she seemed also to have an exhaustive knowledge of the countryside round London, stored away from innumerable community hikes. I remind you, she's supposed to be a Girl Scout. Our guy is a middle-aged man. Yes, you know what? It's a product of its time, you guys. The route she gave him was quite different from the one by which she had come, and brought him out at a different railway station. Never go home the same way as you went out, she said, as though enunciating an important general principle. She would leave first, and Winston was to wait half an hour before following her. She had named a place where they could meet after work, 4 evenings hence. It was a street in one of the poorer quarters, where there was an open market which was generally crowded and noisy. She would be hanging about among the stalls, pretending to be in search of shoelaces or sewing thread. If she judged that the coast was clear, she would blow her nose when he approached. Otherwise, he was to walk past her without recognition. But with luck, in the middle of the crowd, it would be safe to talk for a quarter of an hour and arrange another meeting. And now I must go. My planet needs me. Julia was killed on her way to her planet. Da-da-da-da-da-da! She said as soon as he had mastered his instructions. I'm due back at 1930. I've got to put in 2 hours for the Junior Anti-Sex League. Again, Girl Scout. Handing out leaflets or something. Isn't it bloody? Give me a brush down, would ya? Have I got any twigs in my hair? Are you sure? Then goodbye, my love, goodbye! I did not make any of this up. This is actually written here. I am as confused as you are as to what the tone is supposed to be in this story anymore. She flung herself into his arms, kissed him almost violently. Almost as violently as I am about to eat these words. And a moment later pushed her way through the saplings and disappeared into the wood with very little noise. Even now he had not found out her surname or her address or, her personality or her character, other than likes to have sex with older men. However, it made no difference, for it was inconceivable that they could ever meet indoors or exchange any kind of written communication. As it happened, they never went back to the clearing in the wood. During the month of May, there was only one further occasion on which they actually succeeded in making love. A whole lot of love. Meow. That was in another hiding place known to Julia, the belfry of a ruinous church in an almost deserted stretch of country, where an atomic bomb had fallen 30 years earlier. I like to think that 1984 is taking place in the same universe as When the Wind Blows. If you had not seen When the Wind Blows, go watch When the Wind Blows. And then you'll feel depressed for about a week. You're welcome. It was a good hiding place when once you got there. Wait, it was a good hiding place when once you got there, comma, but the getting there was very dangerous. It was a good hiding place when once you got there, comma, but the getting there was very dangerous. This sentence feels excruciatingly painfully wrong. Why do you need to have when before once, when you already have once serving the purpose of the sentence very well? This is either completely wrong or an obscure grammatical quirk that's just redundant to read. For the rest, they could meet only in the streets, in a different place every evening, and never for more than half an hour at a time. In the street it was usually possible to talk, after a fashion, as they drifted down the crowded pavements, not quite abreast, and never looking at one another. They carried on a curious, intermittent conversation, which flicked on and off like the beams of a lighthouse, suddenly nipped into silence by the approach of a party uniform or the proximity of a telescreen, then taken up against minutes later in the middle of a sentence, then abruptly cut short as they parted at the agreed spot, then continued almost without introduction on the following day. Julia appeared to be quite used to this kind of conversation, which she called talking by installments. Hey, what's up? It's Talking by Installments, starring Julia. Hey, yo! The new hot YouTube series and whatnot. Or whatever the YouTube equivalent would be to a modern iteration of this novel. You bro? Brother Tube? I'm always watching YouTube. She was also surprisingly adept at speaking without moving her lips. Just once in almost a month of nightly meetings, they managed to exchange a kiss. They were passing in silence down a side street. Julia would never speak when they were away from the main streets. When there was a deafening roar, the earth heaved and the air darkened, and Winston found himself lying on his side, bruised and terrified. A rocket bomb must have dropped quite near at hand. Suddenly, he became aware of Julia's face a few centimeters from his own, deathly white as chalk. Even her lips were white. She was dead! Huh. Okay. That was quick! That escalated quickly! That was sudden! Literally just met, having fun together, a whole lot of sex, and suddenly she dies! Just like that! This is the stupidest... Ouch! This is the stupidest... What is this book? Why is this book so popular? Does everybody secretly think this is a comedy? Is there an ongoing inside joke about this book? An ironic enjoying of this book that has superseded its own ironic statement and became genuine over the decades? Is this what I'm missing here? This cannot be real. just like that. This is hilarious. This is the narrative equivalent of the Lost comic. My gosh. Okay. I'm going to continue reading. I cannot wait to see what happens next. He clasped her against him and found that he was kissing He clasped her against him and found that he was kissing a live, warm face. But there was some powdery stuff that got in the way of his lips. Both of their faces were thickly coated with plaster. Hold on. So you say she was dead, but then you say you were kissing a live, warm face, so she's not actually dead? So, in the previous sentence you say she's good at... Which I guess implies that she is good at playing possum? Then you claim that she's dead, but then you imply she's not dead. But you don't really clarify anything. This is written by a donkey? This goddamn paragraph. The information that you're trying to convey and the execution by which you convey it are so distant from one another. It's astounding. So she's not dead. Okay, she's not dead. That's what you're trying to say, right? Are we sure that she's not dead? Is the rest of the book just your delusion? Was this entire book just the delusion of an old paranoid man? Is there even a big brother? What is real? What is fake? Inception? Wham! I hate this book. Is it just me? Is it just me that I don't get how important this manuscript is? Is it just me? Is I the problem here? Tell me, I don't know anymore. This is driving me insane. There were evenings when they reached their rendezvous and then had to walk past one another without a sign, because a patrol had just come around the corner or a helicopter was hovering overhead. Even if it had been less dangerous, it would still have been difficult to find time to meet. So she died, but she did not die, but she died, but she did not die. This is starting to sound like that one Toho fanfiction me and Ross read. My gosh. She was killed, but then she was not. You know what? I might just splice in a clip from that reading, just for the funsies. Oh boy.
Blonde got up mad
Oh,
and threw a bomb
now.
at Reimu, and it killed. It killed her.
Well, someone set up us the bomb, apparently.
But it didn't kill her because it killed her.
So did he kill her or did he not kill her? Ah, such suspense.
Oh god.
Oh wait.
But she used magic to life again.
She used magic to life again. Winston's working week was 60 hours. Julia's was even longer, and their free days varied according to the pressure of work and did not often coincide. Julia, in any case, seldom had an evening completely free. She spent an astonishing amount of time in attending lectures and demonstrations, distributing literature for the Junior Anti-Sex League, preparing banners for Hate Week, #Hate Week, making collections for the savings campaign, and such like activities. It paid, she said. It was camouflage. If you kept the small rules, you could break the big ones. She even induced Winston to mortgage yet another of his evenings by enrolling himself for the part-time munition work, which was done voluntarily by zealous party members. So, one evening every week, Winston spent 4 hours of paralyzing boredom screwing together small bits of metal, which were probably parts of bomb fuses, in a draughty, ill-lit workshop where the knocking of hammers mingled drearily with the music of the telescreens. There, you see, this is George Orwell at his strongest, describing the oppressive nature of an environment. It's when he actually has to tell a story that he fails spectacularly. When they met in the church tower, the gaps in their fragmentary conversation were filled up. It was a blazing afternoon. The air in the little square chamber above the bells was hot and stagnant and smelt overpoweringly of pigeon dung. They sat talking for hours on the dusty, twig-littered floor, one or other of them getting up from time to cast a glance through the arrow slits and make sure that no one was coming. Julia was 26 years old. Thank you, book! Was it really that hard? Was it really that hard for you to tell me how old she was when you just casually gave me that information earlier that she was basically a Girl Scout? Was really that hard? Thank you for putting my mind at ease on at least one issue out of 10, 20, or 100 that you have. The dog is barking outside. Shut up, dog. She lived in a hostel with 30 other girls, always in the stink of women. How I hate women, she said parenthetically. You know what? I'm not going to add anything to this. You make of it what you will. And she worked, as he had guessed, on the novel-writing machines in the fiction department. She enjoyed her work, which consisted chiefly in running and servicing a powerful but tricky electric motor. She was not clever, but was fond of using her hands and felt at home with machinery. She could describe the whole process of composing a novel from the general directive issued by the planning committee down to the final touching up by the rewrite squad. The rewrite squad! That sounds like an awesome Saturday morning spin-off. It's the rewrite squad, they're coming to get you, rewriting history for the big bro. Rewrite squad, down, rewrite squad, down. Rewrite Squad. Coming soon to a television channel near you. I cannot wait for the Netflix reboot of this series. Oh boy. Oh my god. Oh. But she was not interested in the finished product. She didn't much care for reading, she said. Books were just a commodity that had to be produced, like jam or bootlaces. She had no memories of anything before the early 60s, and the only person she had ever known who talked frequently of the days before the revolution was a grandfather who had disappeared when she was 8. At school she had been captain of the hockey team and had won the gymnastics trophy 2 years running. You know, it's nice, I have to say, it's nice for the book to finally give personal information about her and inform the audience as to what her personality might be. It's too little too late for me to care at this point given previous unsavory experiences, but at least it's something. Here, she was captain of her hockey team. That's interesting. That's a background information that might inform us of her own volitive personality, so to speak. It's that the word I'm looking for, volitive, dominating personality. That sounds too harsh. Headstrong. Yes, let's go with headstrong. She had been a troop leader in the Spies and a branch secretary in the Youth League before joining the Junior Anti-Sex League. Again, if she's 26 years old, why is it called the Junior Anti-Sex League? That's what confuses me. She had always borne an excellent character. She had even, an infallible mark of good reputation, being picked out to work in pornosec, the subsection of the fiction department which turned out cheap pornography for distribution among the proles. There is no stopping the porn, not even in a dystopian totalitarian regime. It was nicknamed Muck House, M-U-C-K House, by the people who worked in it. She remarked, "Can we have a novel, an entire book that's nothing about the goings-on of the Muck House? I would read it. It seems far more interesting than anything else at this point. And then we can have a crossover with the Rewrite Squad show. Oh, suck on that, Infinity War." Oh gosh. Oh, it's about to get a lot better. There she had remained for a year, helping to produce booklets in scaled packets with titles like Spanking Stories or One Night in a Girls' School, to be bought furtively by proletarian youths who were under the impression that they were buying something illegal. Oh, this is delightful. "What are these books like?" said Winston curiously. "Oh, ghastly rubbish. They're boring, really. They only have 6 plots, but they swap them round a bit. Of course I was only on the kaleidoscopes. I was never in the Rewrite Squad. I'm not literary. Dear, not even enough for that." Ouch. He learned with astonishment that all the workers in pornosec, except the head of the department, were girls. The theory was that men, whose sex instincts were less controllable than those of women, were in greater danger of being corrupted by the filth they handled. You know what's funny about all of this? The idea that the porn industry is basically controlled by women. The idea that the porn industry is controlled by women! That's hysterical! That's so completely the opposite of reality, it's befuddling. They don't even like having married women there, she added. Girls are always supposed to be so pure. Well, here's one who isn't anyway. Ta-da-da-da-da! She had had her first love affair when she was 16, with a party member of 60. Dear God. Well, are we sure this was not written by Woody Allen? But who later committed suicide to avoid arrest. And a good job too, said Julia. Otherwise they'd have had my name out of him when he confessed. Oh, I am good at surviving at the expense of others. You go, girl. Since then, there had been various others. Life as she saw it was quite simple. You wanted a good time. They, meaning the party, wanted to stop you having it. You broke the rules as best you could. She seemed to think it was just as natural that they should want to rob you of your pleasures as that you should want to avoid being caught. She hated the party and said so in the crudest words, but she made no general criticism of it. Except where it touched upon her own life, she had no interest in party doctrine. He noticed that she never used the newspeak words, except the ones that had passed into everyday use. Come to think of it, nobody ever uses newspeak words in this novel, even though the novel goes out of its way to establish it as the go-to language for this world. I smell a ghastly, smelly dissonance here. She had never heard of the Brotherhood and refused to believe in its existence. Any kind of organized revolt against the party, which was bound to be a failure, struck her as stupid. The clever thing was to break the rules and stay alive all the same. He wondered vaguely how many others like her there might be in their younger generation, people who had grown up in the world of the revolution, knowing nothing else, accepting the party as something unalterable, like the sky, not rebelling against its authority, but simply evading it, as a rabbit dodges a dog. They did not discuss the possibility of getting married. It was too remote to be worth thinking about. No imaginable committee would ever sanction such a marriage, even if Catherine, Winston's wife, could somehow have been got rid of. It was hopeless, even as a daydream. What was she like, your wife? Said Julia. She was, do you know the newspeak word good thinkful, meaning naturally orthodox, incapable of thinking a bad thought? No, I didn't know the word, but I know the kind of person right enough. He began telling her the story of his married life, but curiously enough, she appeared to know the essential parts of it already. She described to him, almost as though she had seen or felt it, the stiffening of Catherine's body as soon as he touched her. The way in which she still seemed to be pushing him from her with all her strength, even when her arms were clasped tightly round him. With Julia, he felt no difficulty in talking about such things. Catherine, in any case, had long ceased to be a painful memory and become merely a distasteful one. "I could have stood it if I hadn't been for one thing," he'd said. He told her about the frigid little ceremony that Catherine had forced him to go through on the same night every week. She hated it, but nothing would make her stop doing it. She used to call it, but you'll never guess. "Our duty to the party?" said Julia promptly. "How did you know that?" "I've been at school too, dear. Sex talks once a month for the over 16s. And in the youth movement, they rub it into you for years. I dare say it works in a lot of cases, but of course you can never tell. People are such hypocrites." She began to enlarge upon the subject. With Julia, everything came back to her own sexuality. As soon as this was touched upon in any way, she was capable of great acuteness. Unlike Winston, she had grasped the inner meaning of the party's sexual puritanism. It was not merely that the sex instinct created a world of its own which was outside the party's control and which therefore had to be destroyed if possible. What was more important was that sexual privation induced hysteria, which was desirable because it could be transformed into war fever and leader worship. The way she put it was, "When you make love, you're using up energy, and afterwards you feel happy and don't give a damn for anything. They can't bear you to feel like that. They want you to be bursting with energy all the time. All this marching up and down and cheering and waving flags is simply sex gone sour. If you're happy inside yourself, why should you get excited about Big Brother and the 3-year plans and the 2-minute hate and all the rest of their bloody rot? In other words, make love, not war." My gosh, this book is the precursor to everything about the hippies. My gosh, no wonder this book was so popular. What other science fiction novel of its time was addressing the matter of sexuality in such an open and frank way? I have to say, I am starting to like this. It's so hard to say for me at this point, but you know, this is actually not that bad a thought. It's actually a very well-constructed thought, in my opinion. I am enjoying this passage. I sure hope the novel keeps the momentum going, because this is getting surprisingly decent. That was very true, we thought. There was a direct, intimate connection between chastity and political orthodoxy. I would argue that some of these thoughts here do apply very well to modern society. You know, all those angry people on the internet? They're just sexually frustrated, and so they use up their energy to make others feel as miserable as they are. But hey, that's just a theory. An Orwell theory. Thank you for watching. I'm going to continue now. For how could the fear, the hatred, and the lunatic credulity which the party needed in its members be kept at the right pitch except by bottling down some powerful instinct and using it as a driving force. The sex impulse was dangerous to the party, and the party had turned it to account. There is a part of me, a dangerously depraved and dark, twisted part of me, that would love to see an adaptation of 1984 done by Jimmy Screamer Claus, applauded director of Where the Dead Go to Die and When the Blackbirds Fly. Although, come to think of it, When the Blackbirds Fly can already sort of count as a interpretation of this text. You should watch When the Blackbirds Fly. It's the most... I'm going to tell you this. It's the most unique cinematic experience of your life. For better and for worse. I liked it, but I have complicated reasons for liking it. So, take what I say with a grain of salt. The sex impulse... They had played a similar trick with the instinct of parenthood. The family could not actually be abolished, and indeed, people were encouraged to be fond of their children in almost the old-fashioned way. The children, on the other hand, were systematically turned against their parents and taught to spy on them and report their deviations. The family had become, in effect, an extension of the thought police. It was a device by means of which everyone could be surrounded night and day by informers who knew him intimately. Abruptly, his mind went back to Catherine. Catherine would unquestionably have denounced him to the thought police if she had not happened to be too stupid to detect the unorthodoxy of his opinions. But what really recalled her to him at this moment was the stifling heat of the afternoon, which had brought the sweat out of his forehead. He began telling Julia of something that had happened, or rather had failed to happen, on another sweltering summer afternoon, 11 years ago. It was 3 or 4 months after they were married. They had lost their way on a community hike somewhere in Kent. They had only lagged behind the others for a couple of minutes, but they took a wrong turning and presently found themselves pulled up short by the edge of an old chalk quarry. It was a sheer drop of 10 or 20 meters, with boulders at the bottom. You know what? This oppressive regime can't possibly be that bad. After all, they're employing the metric system like every civilized country would. Hey! Oh, hey-yo! To be away from the noisy mob of hikers even for a moment gave her a feeling of wrongdoing. She wanted to hurry back, by the way, had come and start searching in the other direction. But at this moment, Winston noticed some tufts of loose strife growing in the cracks of the cliff beneath them. One tuft was of 2 colors, magenta and brick red, apparently growing on the same root. He had never seen anything of the kind before, and he called to Catherine to come and look at it. "Look, Catherine! Look at those flowers! That clump down near the bottom? Do you see they're 2 different colors?" She had already turned to go, but she did rather fretfully come back for a moment. She even leaned out over the cliff face to see where he was pointing. He was standing a little behind her, and he put his hand on her waist to steady her. At this moment, it suddenly occurred to him how completely alone they were. There was not a human creature anywhere, not a leaf stirring, not even a bird awake. In a place like this, the danger that there would be a hidden microphone was very small, and even if there was a microphone, it would only pick up sounds. It was the hottest, sleepiest hour of the afternoon. The sun blazed down upon them, the sweat tickled his face, and a thought struck him. Why didn't you give her a good shove? Said Julia. I would have. You are both such good people, such good characters. Yes, dear, you would have. I would have, if I'd been the same person that I am now, a potential rapist and murderer? Is that what you mean? I will never let you live that one down. Or perhaps I would. I'm not certain. Are you sorry you didn't? Yes, on the whole, I'm sorry I didn't kill this woman that I'm married to, because she's such frigid, noisy, and overall a no fun woman, and oh my gosh, I am so miserable, always me. Yes, that seems reason enough to kill somebody. They were sitting side by side on the dusty floor. He pulled her closer against him. Her head rested on his shoulder. The pleasant smell of her hair conquering the pigeon dung. It must be a pretty strong smell, then. She was very young, he thought. She still expected something from life. She did not understand that to push an inconvenient person over a cliff solves nothing. Also, it's kind of deplorable, but I mean, who am I to judge? Actually, it would have made no difference, he said. Then why are you sorry you didn't do it? Only because I prefer a positive to a negative. In this game that we're playing, we can't win. Some kinds of failure are better than other kinds, that's all. In a game of pushing your wife down a steep, you either win or you don't win. It doesn't quite have the same oomph to it, does it? He felt her shoulders give a wriggle of dissent. She always contradicted him when he said anything of this kind. She would not accept it as a law of nature that the individual is always defeated. In a way, she realized that she herself was doomed, that sooner or later the thought police would catch her and kill her. Foreshadowing? ? Or downright spoiler? You decide. But with another part of her mind, she believed that it was somehow possible to construct a secret world in which you could live as you chose. All you needed was luck and cunning and boldness. She did not understand that there was no such thing as happiness, that the only victory lay in the far future, long after you were dead, that from that moment of declaring war on the party, it was better to think of yourself as a corpse. We are the dead, he said. This is where the dead go to die. We're not dead yet, said Julia prosaically. Not physically. 6 months, a year, 5 years. Conceivably. I am afraid of death. You are young, so presumably you're more afraid of it than I am. Obviously, we shall put it off as long as we can, but it makes very little difference. So long as human beings stay human, death and life are the same thing. Oh, rubbish! Which would you sooner sleep with, me or a skeleton? I'll get back to you on that. I mean, there is a kink or a fetish for everything, so really, who are we to judge? Oh man. Don't you enjoy being alive? Don't you like feeling? This is me. This is my hand. This is my leg. This is my breast. This is my buttocks. This is my vagina. This is... Oh, jeez. Jeez Louise. It's not me. I swear, it's the influence of pornosec. It's bad. Porn is bad for you. Mark my word. Get it? Mark instead of Mark, because of it's a funny joke. I'm real. I'm solid. I'm alive. I'm alive. I'm alive. Don't you like this? She twisted herself round and pressed her bosom against him. He could feel her breasts, ripe yet firm, through her overalls. I'm sorry, but now that you mention overalls, I cannot stop thinking about a Rule 63 Mario. You're ruining me. Oh, you are ruining me, book. Her body seemed to be pouring some of its youth and vigor into his. Yes, I like that, he said. Then stop talking about dying. And now listen, dear. We've got to fix up about the next time we meet. We may as well go back to the place in the wood. We've given it a good long rest, but you must get there by a different way this time. I've got it all planned out. You take the train, but look, I'll draw it out for you. I expect a cartoon montage of Sylvester the cat blueprinting his next scheme to capture the Tweety bird. And in her excuse me. And in her practical way, she scraped together a small square of dust, and with a twig from a pigeon's nest began drawing a map on the floor. And that is the end of chapter 3. And it's been almost a solid hour, so I think I'm going to leave it at that. Reading just one chapter at a time of this book is surprisingly exhausting. But you know what? At the very least, this latest chapter was a dramatic improvement from the last one. I mean, the last one was so bad and poorly thought out, poorly handled and misguided overall that the novel had nowhere else to go but up. But at the very least, it was a dramatic escalation. Apart from that one time in which the book implied that she was dead, but she really was not dead. No, wait, the book said she was dead, but then implied she was not. The execution of that paragraph gives me the heebie-jeebies. Alrighty then, so that was another successful, you cannot see the air quotes, but pretend you do, successful reading of this harrowing experience that we call a age-defining science fiction masterpiece. The part about acknowledging sex as a legitimate alternative to violence is, I think, pretty good overall. It is pretty much the manifesto of an entire generation of hippie EPs, I should say. And it still very much applies to a lot of problems that we have today. Although not in a simplistic manner as the book suggests. Although I have to say, if everybody with a sex drive and frustrations derived from it were to orgy together, and it was consensual, mind you, then I think that a lot of problems that we have today about pretty much everything would be, if not solved, at least on their way to find a reasonable solution. But that's just let's face it, that's just a wish fulfillment fantasy. That's just a theory so far removed from praxis that with the current state of humanity can never find a proper application. But regardless, I think I am done for today. Thank you for listening to me, and also thank you for listening to my rambling blurbs here and there. This book might not be as awful as previously imagined, but at the same time it can never, ever recover from the awful first 2 chapters of part 2. They were so unredeemably bad. They pretty much ruined the rest of the book for me, regardless of how much more well written it turns out to be at the end. I am pleased. I am very pleased that Julia is starting to have a real character of her own, a real personality, and part of that personality informs us that she's not really a good person, a very egotistical person in her own right, much like the main character. So she's not just a surrogate support standing female character that only serves the purpose of being there for the protagonist. This chapter, if anything else, implies, or at least it gives us enough information about her that we can come off of it with the assumption that she indeed has an agency of her own, which is the most important thing to give to your characters. Agency. Informed by personality, informed by background and characteristics, and all of the good things you should do in order to write compelling characters. I still maintain that I don't really like or care about these two, but at least I am able to grasp at something substantial, something remotely compelling to keep me going down this rabbit hole. This has been Madhog Thy Master. I'll see you again soon for... I don't know. We'll see. Yes, we'll see. That sounded more ominous than I intended it, but who cares? Goodbye.